When you're trying to colonize Mars, create sustainable energy, and still figure out how to sleep 6 hours a night, the last thing you want is guesswork in your personal life. I've failed enough times in relationships to know this. Love isn't magic, it's engineering, design, alignment. This speech isn't just about what I want. It's about what's required for a modern relationship to survive the gravitational pull of ambition and uncertainty. So if you've ever asked yourself what success in love looks like in the age of innovation, this is the blueprint. Stay with me, because I promise you this, what you're about to hear isn't romantic, it's radical, and maybe that's exactly what love needs right now. When it comes to choosing a life partner, most people focus on chemistry, sparks, butterflies, the so-called magic that's supposed to glue two people together. But let me ask you something practical. Have you ever tried to build a future on sparks? They're beautiful, but they vanish in seconds. What I'm looking for in my next wife is something far more sustainable, a shared vision. Now, vision isn't just about agreeing on where to live or how many kids to have. It's a much deeper alignment. It's about being able to sit down at 2 a.m., wide awake not because of insomnia, but because you're both electrified by a mission, an idea, a possibility. That's the kind of synergy I'm talking about. I've learned through the hard knocks of past relationships that being aligned intellectually and emotionally on a long-term mission is far more important than surface-level compatibility. I don't want someone to just walk beside me. I want someone who looks in the same direction I do, even if we see different things at first. For me, vision means asking, what are we building? What problems are we solving together? Are we merely coexisting, or are we collaborating on a life that makes sense under pressure, uncertainty, and rapid evolution? A lot of people talk about finding the one. I don't believe in the one. I believe in the build. My next wife isn't going to be someone I find. She's going to be someone I create with every single day. That requires two people who aren't afraid to reinvent the rules of partnership. People who don't just want comfort, they want contribution. In a relationship, vision is the compass. When you're lost, confused, or off course, and you will be, vision brings you back. I need someone who can hold that compass with me, who doesn't flinch when the terrain gets rough, and who believes that love isn't just a feeling but a framework. When you build rockets or try to rewire how the world uses energy, you quickly understand that alignment is everything. 1 degree off on launch can mean missing your destination by millions of miles. The same applies to relationships. If your long-term vision doesn't match, even slightly, it may take years to notice, but eventually you'll find yourselves worlds apart, no matter how strong the passion was at the start. And here's the truth. I've been there. I've experienced the collapse that comes when two people admire each other but don't aim for the same future. You can love someone deeply and still realize you're headed in different directions. That kind of disconnection doesn't explode. It erodes, slowly, quietly, until one day you wake up next to someone who feels like a stranger. That's a pain I never want to repeat. So no, I'm not looking for sparks anymore. I'm looking for a woman who sees Mars when I point at the stars. Someone who doesn't just tolerate the intensity of my world, but adds her own brilliance to it. We'll disagree, challenge each other, and at times frustrate each other. But we'll always be aligned in why we're together. That kind of compatibility, it doesn't fade, it scales. Let me be blunt. I'm not interested in someone who knows all the answers. I'm drawn to someone who's still obsessed with asking better questions. Because in a world that's moving faster than ever where artificial intelligence can think most humans, and automation is replacing repetition, What remains irreplaceable is the human capacity to stay curious. Curiosity is what drives innovation. It's what built the internet, launched rockets, cured diseases, and created art that still takes our breath away. And if I'm going to share my life with someone, she needs to be wired for that same pursuit, not of comfort, but of discovery. I've met brilliant people, I've dated charming people, but the one quality I find the rarest and most essential is intellectual curiosity, a hunger to learn, a drive to evolve, a willingness to dismantle outdated assumptions and reconstruct new frameworks, whether about the world, business, or love itself. My next wife won't just be smart. Intelligence is table stakes. What I want is a woman who still reads books like she's searching for a portal. Who can go from discussing quantum physics to philosophy over coffee and then stop mid-sentence just to wonder aloud, what if we're doing it all wrong? Because here's the truth. Curiosity isn't just academic, it's relational. When two people are curious about the world, they stay curious about each other. They don't fall into routines, they evolve together. They challenge each other not for ego, but for expansion. They grow side by side, because neither one believes in staying still. Relationships die when curiosity ends. When you assume you know everything about your partner, you stop exploring them. You start managing the relationship instead of co-creating it. That's not love. That's maintenance. I want someone who interrupts conversations with wild ideas, who loses track of time solving problems that don't even have immediate answers, someone who still walks through life like there's something new waiting around every corner, and who invites me to look with her. Now, let's talk about conflict, because when you're dealing with curiosity, you're also dealing with questions, and questions lead to disagreement. That's not a flaw, it's a feature. I'm not afraid of debates at the dinner table. I welcome them, if they're driven by curiosity, not ego. The kind of partner I'm looking for will push back when it matters, challenge my assumptions, and force me to sharpen my thinking. We won't always agree, but we'll always evolve. And that's the point. I want a relationship that evolves as quickly as the world we're living in. That kind of momentum doesn't come from comfort. It comes from curiosity. And here's the paradox most people miss. Intellectual curiosity makes emotional connection deeper. Why? Because when you're genuinely interested in how someone thinks, you understand them. You empathize with them. You don't just hear their words. You trace the architecture of their mind. That's intimacy. Not just physical, but intellectual, philosophical, even spiritual. So no, I'm not asking for someone who went to an elite university. I don't care about degrees. I care about depth. I care about someone who still sees life as an unsolved problem worth waking up for. Because at the end of the day, love, real love, isn't just a feeling. It's a form of exploration, and I'm looking for a partner in that great experiment. Someone who won't just walk beside me, but who'll wonder aloud with me, what if we could do this better? That's the kind of woman I want to marry. That's the kind of mind I'll never stop being curious about. Let's be honest. My life is not normal. I don't live in calm waters. I live inside a perpetual storm of pressure, ambition, deadlines, global attention, and existential risk. Some people romanticize that energy, but living inside that engine requires more than fascination. It requires emotional resilience. So what I'm looking for in my next wife isn't someone to handle the chaos. I'm looking for someone who doesn't just survive in the storm, but brings stillness into it, a stabilizing force, not because she's passive or silent, but because her presence is rooted, thoughtful, and unwavering in a world that constantly shifts. You see, emotional volatility breaks things that logic can't fix. No matter how brilliant two people are, if one lacks emotional balance, it eventually becomes a system failure. You can't build rockets on unstable fuel, and you can't build a relationship on emotional unpredictability. I've been through enough chaos to know what doesn't work. I've had the adrenaline highs, the passionate arguments, the cycles of overreacting and over-apologizing, and what did it create? Burnout, confusion. Distance? It taught me something simple but powerful. If you want to build something that lasts, you need emotional architecture, not just emotional impulse. The woman I'm looking for doesn't avoid difficult emotions. She understands them. She knows when to lean in and when to hold space. She doesn't escalate tension. She diffuses it with maturity. She brings logic to emotion and empathy to logic. That's a rare kind of intelligence, emotional intelligence, and it matters more to me than any resume or achievement. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for self-awareness, someone who knows how to pause before reacting, someone who doesn't need to control the situation, but instead manages herself with grace, even when the world around her is spinning out of control. I need someone who can hear bad news and not collapse, who can witness a failure and not internalize it as identity, who can face pressure not with panic, but with poise, because life at my pace will test everything, your boundaries, your patience, your faith. I'm not looking for someone who's unshakable. I'm looking for someone who learns how to find her center again and again. Think of it this way. When you're building rockets, you need a gyroscope, a stabilizing mechanism that helps maintain orientation regardless of external forces. I'm not asking her to be the gyroscope for me, but rather for herself. Because when two stable people come together, their combined strength becomes unstoppable. The world doesn't need more emotionally reactive people. It needs more emotionally responsive people. There's a difference. Reactivity is knee-jerk. Response is conscious. One is survival. The other is leadership. I'm looking for a woman who leads herself emotionally, not because life is easy, but because she's done the inner work to weather it. And let me be clear, this isn't about being emotionless. In fact, the most stable people I know are deeply emotional. They just aren't ruled by those emotions. They know how to feel without drowning, how to express without destroying. That's power, that's grace under fire. I don't need drama. I need depth. I don't want to manage emotions. I want to meet them with someone who can hold the space for both of us to grow through them. Because in the world I live in, the pressure won't go away. But if I can come home to someone who brings stillness into the storm, someone who doesn't flinch when life throws turbulence, then I know we can face anything together, in any high-functioning system, whether it's a neural network, an ecosystem, or a team of engineers. Dependence without autonomy is a liability, and the same is true in relationships. What I'm looking for in my next wife is someone who's fully independent, yet understands the profound value of interdependence. Let me explain what that means. I'm not interested in being someone's everything. That sounds romantic on the surface, but in reality, it's unsustainable. If one person in a relationship becomes the source of all happiness, direction, emotional stability, and motivation, it creates an unspoken demand to constantly perform, constantly fulfill, and constantly protect the other person from their own emptiness. That's not partnership, that's imbalance. I want a woman who knows who she is without me, who has her own mission, her own sense of purpose, and her own orbit. A woman whose world doesn't collapse when I'm not present. because she's building something just as meaningful on her own terms. Someone who isn't waiting to be rescued, but rather chooses to walk alongside me because she's strong enough on her own. That's independence, but it can't stop there, because if we're both just running solo missions with no shared gravity, then we're just two satellites drifting in parallel. That's not love either. What I want is a woman who understands interdependence. The idea that we are stronger, smarter, and more emotionally intelligent together than we are apart. Interdependence is the art of leaning on each other without leaning too hard. It's choosing to connect, not out of need, but out of value alignment. It's mutual support, mutual respect, and mutual elevation. It's recognizing that, yes, I can survive without you, but I'm choosing to build with you because I see exponential potential in our partnership. Too many relationships collapse under the weight of unclear roles, unmet expectations, and unspoken dependencies. One person gives everything while the other person drifts, or worse, one person loses themselves to the other, slowly dissolving into the background. That's a tragedy I refuse to repeat. I want someone who will challenge me, not because she has to fight for her voice, but because she values it. Someone who brings her own energy, her own ideas, her own leadership into our dynamic. I don't want to overshadow her. I want to collide creatively and then collaborate intentionally. This kind of relationship is like a binary star system, two independent sources of power, each with their own gravitational pull, but locked in orbit around a common center. That center is not one person. It's the mission, the shared vision, the deliberate choice to grow side by side without losing individual identity. And yes, it requires precision, communication, trust, respect for boundaries, but when it works, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Two people with clarity, autonomy, and aligned purpose. That's a launch pad, not just for love, but for legacy. So no, I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm not looking to complete her either. We'll both be whole before we meet. What I am looking for is a partner in the truest sense of the word. Someone who thrives independently, yet chooses, consciously, to build something greater with me. That's not codependence. That's not detachment. That's strategic connection. That's evolution. And that's the kind of relationship I'm ready to design, build, and invest in for the long haul. Let me say something that might sound counterintuitive in a speech about love. Romantic chemistry alone isn't enough. It's important, yes, but passion limited to physical or emotional intimacy has a short shelf life. What I'm looking for in my next wife is a deeper fire, a kind of passion that burns outside the bedroom. Something that fuels her when no one is watching. I want to be with a woman who is on fire for something. A mission, a purpose, a creative pursuit, a cause she believes in so deeply that she'd pursue it even if no one applauded. Because that kind of passion is magnetic. It doesn't just inspire, it sustains. It gives a person structure, direction, momentum. It tells me she's not just alive, she's awake. Romantic passion is often mistaken for love. It's not. It's the launch stage, but passion for life. That's what gives a relationship propulsion long after the honeymoon fades. I've seen the difference. I've lived it. The truth is, couples don't fall apart because they stop loving each other. They fall apart because they stop growing, stop creating, stop being curious about life and each other. So I want someone who's building something, even if it has nothing to do with me, a business, a book, a foundation, a movement. It could be art, science, education, or gardening. I don't care what it is. What I care about is that she cares, that she wakes up thinking about it, fights for it, refines it, and loses track of time while immersed in it. Because here's what happens when two passionate people come together: they multiply. They don't drain each other, they amplify each other. Her energy feeds mine, and mine feeds hers. That's when a relationship stops being about coexistence and becomes a platform for world-changing output. Not because we're trying to prove something, but because we're both pulled by something bigger than ourselves. When someone has a deep-rooted passion, they bring an entirely different kind of presence into a relationship. They're not needy, they're driven. They don't get lost in someone else's story. They're writing their own, and that's the person I want by my side, because I live a life that demands more than balance. It demands alignment. There will be times I'm consumed by my own projects, by massive goals and impossible deadlines. The woman I marry can't just be waiting for me to clock out and return to her. She needs to be living a life so fulfilling that when we reconnect, we're sharing fuel, not just asking for it. And no, passion doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't mean being busy 24/7 or constantly chasing some external achievement. It means being lit up from the inside. It means refusing to live life on autopilot. It means choosing aliveness over apathy. I'm not looking for someone to complete my world. I want someone who brings an entire world of her own and then invites me into it. Someone who knows how to disappear into her craft and return with new energy. Someone who gets that romance is beautiful, but shared passion is electric. If she has that fire, that sense of mission, that undeniable pull toward a future she's shaping, then I'll know she's not just a partner in love. She's a partner in legacy, because when romance fades, and it always does in cycles, it's the passion beyond romance that keeps us building, dreaming, and coming back to each other. Again and again. There's a hard truth that most people don't want to hear about love, success, and life. You can't have it all without giving something up. Anything extraordinary, whether it's building a company, raising a family, changing the world, or building a relationship that lasts, requires sacrifice. And what I'm looking for in my next wife is not just someone who understands this truth intellectually, but someone who embodies it. Someone who doesn't flinch at the word sacrifice, but embraces it as the cost of meaningful creation. I don't want perfection. I want grit. I want someone who understands that behind every breathtaking moment, every win, every breakthrough, there's 100 invisible trade-offs. Lost weekends, sleepless nights, time away from the noise so you can focus on what matters, not because we're martyrs, but because we're builders. You see, real love isn't just a feeling, it's a construction zone. And construction zones are messy. Things break, get rebuilt, evolve. You don't always get the blueprint right the first time, but you keep building because the vision is worth it. That's what I'm looking for. A woman who doesn't run when the dust kicks up, who understands that high performance in any field, business, parenting, art, love, means saying no to good things in order to build great ones. It means giving up comfort to pursue something that's never existed before. There's a kind of quiet strength in people who have suffered for a mission, who have gone without sleep to chase an idea, who have sacrificed time with loved ones to lay a foundation for others. That strength can't be taught, it's lived. And that's the kind of woman I want beside me. She doesn't need to have the same sacrifices as me. I don't need her to be in tech or in the spotlight or working 100-hour weeks. But I do need her to know what it means to give something up for something bigger. I need her to be familiar with the weight of responsibility, the ache of delayed gratification, the beauty of earning joy, not just expecting it. Because the truth is, most people want the reward without the risk. They want the results without the price. They want a great relationship, but they're unwilling to go through the necessary friction, communication, patience, and emotional labor it takes to build one. I don't want that. I want a woman who understands that progress requires pain, that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for each other isn't to make life easy, but to make it meaningful, to be honest when it hurts, to sacrifice being right in order to stay connected, to put the relationship above the ego. And yes, there will be moments when life asks more of us than we expected. Moments where we have to drop everything and show up. Moments where we put the mission, the marriage, the family, the legacy, above our own preferences. She has to be ready for that, just like I am, because at the end of the day, love isn't found, it's forged. Through long nights, through difficult choices, through shared risks, through 1,000 tiny sacrifices that no one will ever see, but that we will feel and carry and one day look back on with pride. That's the kind of relationship I'm committed to building, and the woman who's willing to build it with me. Sacrifice and all will never walk alone.